I've had a lot of this story for the better part of 10 years in various ways, and just got serious about writing it about 5 or 6 years ago. But the one thing that I always had was this character of a sailor coming back from the war. There's an attraction to me to that era. I mean, besides just the obvious, great costumes, great music, that's kind of food and drink, really, to if you get a chance to do this, to kind of time travel a little bit and try to understand what was going on. My father was around during that time, so you probably, and he's not around anymore, so probably in an effort to kind of understand better what his experiences were, I probably was sort of digging around to see what it was like. Looking after the war, sort of all this optimism, but just a tremendous amount of destruction in the background. That's a great dramatic situation to sort of for these characters, I think, and kind of a good venue to tell a story in. That you have to kind of let that stuff go a teeny bit. Like there's musicologists out there probably who would kill us for using "Get Thee Behind Me, Satan," which is like was at least 2 years after our time in the film, which is like probably an absolute no-no to some people. But you just have to fudge the details a little bit, and hopefully nobody notices. My influences are long and huge, and we keep Turner Classics on at my house all the time, so it's just like a 24-hour kind of IV of information and feeling. And if you're cooking breakfast and you look over and you can see something that somebody did 60 years ago, you think, man, and hopefully it just gets in you, and you sort of can go into a film maybe sort of thinking about ideas or other films that you've seen, but days into it, when the clock is ticking and the schedule is moving at a pace, you just hopefully sort of become yourself, and you're just trying to sort of film it right and uniquely and simply. I mean, that's sort of the thing that I love about most films, is sort of you see on Turner Classic, just how muscular and strong and simple they are. I'd always wanted to work with Joaquin. I've tried to work with him before, and it never worked out. And this was just this was the opportunity that came up, and the time was right, and the character was right, and there was a great mutual admiration and respect between Philip and Joaquin, and I think a kind of excitement to act with each other. So yeah, in terms of that, and I feel the same way about Amy as well. I wanted to try to find a way to work with her since I first saw her, and Phil has worked with her before, so she was dynamite. And then everybody else in the film, kind of like a lot of people were just starting out. A lot of sort of great young actors, Amber Childers and Jesse Plemons, Rami Malek, and the list goes on. Sort of great young actors who were just starting out, who really came and did a great job. I was curious about these old VistaVision cameras, and sort of how like North by Northwest and Vertigo ended up looking like that. So we sort of had the idea of trying to mess around with some of those cameras, not to recreate that look, but just as a way to kind of use some old gear and equipment that might be lying around. And so we just started testing stuff out. We started testing a lot of old lenses over at Panavision, and sooner or later a fellow that works over there, Dan Sasaki, suggested us trying these 65 cameras that they had that have been used here and there lately. Chris Nolan's been using them, and Robert used them a couple times. Anyway, so we started shooting with them, and the results just felt right. It felt like obviously very rich, and it could help you, create ideally that kind of that thing that happens when the movie theater goes dark, that you kind of time travel, that you hope you're watching a story that actually has taken place with people with real lives, and acting them out as they did act them out. And the farthest I got along in thinking about it was that, maybe we'll be able to make a 70 print, but I knew ultimately that most people would be seeing a 35 millimeter reduction, or so I thought. I mean, in the 5 years since I've made a film, a lot has happened, and there's a lot more digital theaters than I was really naive in thinking about this. So at the very least, I thought we'd have a couple 70 prints, and sort of lo and behold, as this thing sort of unraveled and the film's about to come out, people will come out of the woodwork, and we're going to have 16 prints total, and they'll play in different theaters across the country and the world. And that has just been kind of a miracle that we've been able to do that.